And one thing I never know with Zoom, are you guys seeing yourself on my screen or not?
Yes.
In the screen sharing? Okay, so
You're just small though, so you're good.
I'm just gonna, yeah.
You can change your view if you want in the upper right corner, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll not touch it for now, I know, but I'll check for later.
You look good.
All right, well, let's get started now, guys. So good afternoon, and thank you all so much for joining us for today's Community Uninterrupted webinar, Educating Healthcare Professionals with Gaming. Today, brands in all industries are realizing the power of gaming for various objectives. When Havas Health and You, the world's largest health network, was looking to engage and educate healthcare professionals for one of their clients' latest breakthroughs, they elevated their approach with gaming. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Gameloft for Brands and Havas Health and You to discuss the application of games in the healthcare and wellness industry and how it was effectively used to educate and promote through interactivity and fun. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our presenters. Ian Strong, Associate Creative Director from Havas Worldwide, and Quentin Moreau-Defarge, Head of Creative Strategy North America at Gameloft. Before we begin, I just want to mention that we welcome you to post your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Welcome, Ian and Quentin.
All right, thanks for having me. I'll do a little brief overview of myself, and then Quentin, you can jump in here. As she said, I'm working at Havas Health and You. I've been there for a long time, 5 years in the advertising business. That's a long time. I've been working in this industry, healthcare advertising specifically, for over 10 years now. I've worked at a lot of the major advertising agencies based in New York City. And as she said, I'm an associate creative director. We work across a bunch of different clients, any of the big pharma clients you've seen, and also small, kind of smaller scale startups and biotechs. And that's kind of my experience.
All right. Well, hi, everyone, and thanks, Ian, for joining with me today. So again, I'm Head of Creative Strategy for North America for Gameloft for Brands. I'm based out of Toronto. For those who've never heard of Gameloft, maybe we're a mobile game publisher. We've been around for quite a while, more than 20 years now. And you may know us better through titles such as Asphalt 9, Minion Rush, Modern Combat 5, or Disney Magic Kingdoms, to name a few. On my side, I've been with the company for almost 11 years now. I started my career by making games for these old, Motorola, Nokia flip phones that you may have had at some point in time if you're old enough. And today, as head of creative strategy, my job in a nutshell is to ideate and create games for brands. So on modern communication devices, that goes without saying. So I definitely consider myself a gamer at heart, and I think, Ian, you told me you're actually quite the gamer yourself. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, I'm of the generation that grew up, in front of the TV, right? So, my brother and I have been gaming since, we were 4 years old, whether it was, Super Nintendo. Before that, my uncles, had the original Nintendo. I've played the original PC games, and I've kind of just kept with it all through every generation of kind of PlayStation, Xbox, PC games. I've done it all. I currently still play, with my group of friends. It's all on Xbox now, console. Some of my friends are PC, but it's actually been quite nice throughout all of this. And I tell people that, when they ask about gaming and what that's kind of like, in this year in particular, we have a medium in a way, a vehicle for me and my, closest guy friends, 5 or 6 guy friends, to constantly be in the same room of each other. And not only are we talking and catching up, and you can't do that in person, but you're playing games, whether it's Call of Duty or other popular battle royale type games. You're joining forces and you're working together and you're communicating. So it actually has been beneficial, not just to the education component, which obviously we're going to talk about today, but also mental health and social aspects. It's a nice way for people to stay connected virtually in a world where you can't do that in person.
I cannot agree more. And I think we have like kind of the same path when it comes to gaming. For me, like, I had my first console when I was 8 years old, and that's how it all started. It was a NES, with Super Mario Bros. 3. I then went on with different consoles, playing on PC2, on mobile as well, obviously more recently. And so basically, as for the audience, maybe it was listening to us, Ian and myself define ourselves as gamers, and a lot of people may not do so, but they probably are gamers, and we've seen indeed with the last year. Last year has really shone a light on gaming. Many reports now show that there's almost 3 billion gamers worldwide across all platforms. So it's definitely a force to be reckoned with, and it actually back up the idea that play is sort of like instinct for us. And this is not a new theory, but again, seeing gaming as part of our pop culture, I think it proves a point. And through the origins of play, and also like thanks to recent scientific research, you mentioned like mental health, and also there's also like other fields in healthcare, we can start really getting a better understanding of how gaming can become a sort of cornerstone for healthcare and wellness. And so very, very quickly, I'm just going to scroll like through two slides right now that will demonstrate how gaming is impacting brain activity. For instance, here it shows that gaming improves visual and spatial skills, and it's been clinically proven that gaming has this strong impact on hippocampal activity. It's also been shown that gaming play a role in attention, and that gamers are usually more attentive compared with non-gamers, and they require less brain activation to stay focused on demanding tasks. And that's even better than that, because some other studies have actually shown a direct correlation to a better brain connectivity. So all of this to say that playing video games not only changes how your brain perform, but also their structure. And so speaking about brain, actually, Gameloft released very early on a game series called Brain Challenge that was targeted at keeping your brain active through a variety of daily puzzle and minigame. That was, I think, like probably more than 10 years ago. It was before even I joined the company. And if you want to enjoy these games, see what it was like, playing on mobile phones, 10 years ago, you can. We have a collection of Gameloft classes that you can download, so feel free to do so. But yeah, so this was our first step into healthcare in a way. And fast forwarding, to 2020, we released a brand new app called App Play-Doh, and it's an augmented reality edutainment app for kids 4 to 9, in developing their creativity, building imagination, skills, and also develop their language through different activities. And it was actually developed in partnership with Oxford's University's Department of Education. And so they provide us with a set of guidelines so that we can build a game that develops cognitive skills such as mathematics, motor skills, reading, writing, and memory. And so clearly, healthcare and wellness is a vertical we want to keep on nurturing in the future, especially when we know that our healthcare gamification market will keep on growing significantly in the next few years. And I don't know, yeah, what do you think? What do you foresee for the future of the healthcare industry when it comes to gaming and gamification?
I think it's only going to grow. I mean, if we've learned anything over the past few years, it's, to grab someone's attention is just more difficult than ever, right? So, I can speak to one personal anecdotal experience I had with this in the healthcare space. I used to work on a product for multiple sclerosis. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, basically it's an autoimmune disorder where your own cells are attacking your brain, a certain part in your brain. And depending on where that attack occurs, there's inflammation, there's resulting symptoms, deficits, long-term effects, quality of life issues, all of those things. So someone who has multiple sclerosis can exhibit a wide range of symptoms based on where that attack is happening in their brain. It's a very complicated story to educate people on because your brain is one of the most complex things in the world. So we actually used gaming as a way for patients to kind of interact with this 3D model And when I say game, I mean kind of loosely, right? The definition of a game has kind of shifted over the past few years, but we created this tool that was able to help a neurologist explain, this is your occipital lobe in the brain, and you have inflammation here on your MRI. Let's look at your MRI and let's see what's happening. Are you having blurred vision? Are you having loss of eyesight in one eye? So it was a way to communicate these things in a tangible way. And basically, as technology has advanced, we weren't able to construct a 3D brain model that you could, dive deep inside the structure and the function of the human anatomy like we could, today. But so all of these things, as technology advances, and we'll hit on this a little bit later in the presentation, but I foresee this shooting up even further as like I said, what's defined as a game just becomes looser and looser, and it becomes more of a preferred method. A lot of people in the film business, Jon Favreau, who's an incredible director, producer, he's done everything that you love. He thinks the future of movies is video games. So there's a lot of interesting parallels in terms of what this means for education, what it means for healthcare, what it means for mental health, what it means for social activity. It's all going up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. And the example we gave is quite fantastic. And on mine, I'll just add onto that really gamification favors what we mentioned earlier on when I was talking about brain connectivity, brain performance, favors recall, it favors saliency, it favors really top of mind. So it's a great way. It's a great way to learn and to discover new topics. It's really the best engaging way that you can find around. So I cannot agree more. And so I think it's time to talk to the audience a little bit about our project now.
Sure. So this is a case study that we're going to show you. Basically, it was a smaller stage startup company called Arena Pharmaceuticals. They're based in San Diego. They have offices in Boston and in Zug, Switzerland. So when they first came to us, this was pre-pandemic. The idea of, when you're that early stage of a company, you're highly vested in clinical trials and making sure that your stakeholders, whether they're healthcare professionals or even investors, know about the products that you're spending the time and efforts to research through clinical trials. So congresses and conferences for these major, whether they're gastrointestinal conferences with GIs or neurology conferences, they're huge for getting medical education out into the public. So obviously that has completely shut off over the past year. So we were in a weird situation where we were starting to think about how we could develop this for an in-person booth experience, a physical game that someone could interact with and play. Then lockdown happened, everything was canceled, but we needed to figure out a way that we could take those ideas and those assets and still make them apply. I think what a lot of people have learned over the past year or so is, people adapt, right? You have a problem and you figure out a solution. Nothing's going to change that, whether it's climate change or coronavirus or whatever. So we actually, took those main ideas and brought them to Gameloft, a partner within our own network, at Havas, and said, what can we do? What can we do to take this information, digitize it, make it friendly across all channels? And as these kind of conferences went more virtual, we were able to just tell our clients that we got you covered. Don't worry, we're going to be able to do this. Nothing's going to have to lose. We're not going to have to kill any of these great ideas. We can still move forward in this kind of new environment.
Yes, indeed. And so here you have an example. So you will have a long video showing you what we've been working on, and it's indeed a fact that we were planning to go for a physical event in the first place, and then had to switch onto an online event. But this is something that with the pandemic, obviously we've been approached to design these kinds of experiences, and I think the fact that a gaming company can build a digital venue and a digital online experience that's a little bit different from your usual, streaming conferences. I think that's also, what we can add as a value. And working with Havas Health and you, it was really, in addition to our gaming expertise, then we had the medical expertise, and I would say as a companion, they were able to really take us through each step of how this etrasimod medicine was working. And so during our conversation with Ian and his teams, I mean, the idea of some sort of a simple strategy game, where you have to control a flow of lymphocytes within the lymph nodes quickly came onto the table. And we believed it was the best approach to represent the etrasimod mechanism of action, MOA, as accurately and medically as possible, and also for our target audience. And if I remember correctly, I think we suggested something like 2 or 3 different gameplay options, and we ended up with some sort of tower defense type of game, which you're seeing actually right now on your screen. So to explain briefly how this game works, you have to picture yourself inside a lymph node of someone who is affected by an autoimmune disease. And your job is to ensure there's no inflammation within the lymph node. And so how will you do so? Well, it will be by controlling the flow of lymphocytes, T cells within the lymph nodes. And really this game is really about, balance. And that's how you increase your score. So you will max your score the more you balance the flow of, the better you balance the flow of lymphocytes. And so the higher your score will be. And so now you can ask the question, how do you control the flow of this lymphocyte? Well, as you may have seen already, it's like you're placing these small towers on the side and on the path along the path of the lymphocytes. And these little towers actually are standing for S1P receptors that are key in etrasimod's MOA. To drive replayability, re-engagement, we also added a leaderboard, so you've just seen it. It was for users to record their score and to possibly replay the game so they can try to top up the leaderboard and also keep on learning about the MOA. And in addition, and you start seeing this now actually on your screen as well, we complemented the game with an interactive video. So it was based on an existing video, but we wanted to add a little bit of interactivity to it. So we chapterized it. We provided some reference. We could have the ability to replay it at will. And we also built a module for clinical trial screens where you can really go in depth into the actual, pipeline of arena etrasimod and some other details about the molecule. So this platform now, you may wonder, where was it hosted? Well, that's the beauty of it. It was actually 100% online, meaning like you did not need to download an app. It could be accessed very easily through your computer, through your tablet, through an actual browser. So no need to download anything. And our dev teams really did an amazing job optimizing the platform, ensuring that we could run this on the largest possible number of devices and number of systems. And I think the results spoke for themselves. Ian, maybe you want to talk a bit more about how the client perceived it and received this platform.
They loved it. I mean, the engagement metrics that you get from doing something like this, whether it's the game, as Quentin was saying, the game is relatively simple, right? But if you're a gastro and you're learning about a new, we call those, mechanism of actions. How do they work? There is a lot of complex science in there, but we made a very cognizant decision to not lead with something that's going to overwhelm you, lead with a simple concept of a game, like Quentin was saying, the tower defense game. And in between, we're inserting that clinical rationale. We're telling them how this metaphor works for what the drug will eventually do to help people who have certain GI disorders like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or a bunch of other ones. But basically, the overwhelming feedback was, this is great. Like as Quentin was saying, we were taking assets that they had already had and just dialing up to 10. We were giving them so much more than they thought they could get out of those assets. And when you say that to a client and you're talking about amortizing their existing assets into something so cool, something radical, even just this module was one kind of kiosk that was planned to be at this booth, as you can kind of see here. But now it lives on forever. right? You can access this at any way, at any conference in the future, or regardless of where it is or what the conversation is about, you can easily kind of adapt and update these things so that they live on. And I think the clients really appreciate that. They obviously get the biggest bang for your buck. And when you see things like engagement times of 4 minutes, a typical, for reference, when you have a sales force, they call them elevator pitches because you have to get your idea across in 30 seconds. So if you're able to, captivate an audience for 4 minutes about something that's very high science and clinical in nature and do it in a way that's fun, that's just a win-win across the board.
Yeah, totally. And so when it comes really to the performance, I think it was really way over what we expected, so we're really happy with that. Again, I talked about the optimizations, and we're actually keeping on updating this platform for 2021 as well. But again, what we wanted is to make sure that it's again easily accessible from your computer, and you don't have to go and search for it. And so just like we said earlier, the market for healthcare gamification will keep on growing really significantly. And whether we're talking casual games, so consumer-facing experiences, serious games, so more like this one, targeted HCPs and caregivers, or exercise apps, for fitness aficionados, there's really a lot we can do in the field to make it more mainstream, to make it more accessible, and to make it more engaging. And we're obviously not alone, and many have developed incredible experiences over the past 10 years for a variety of health and wellness conditions. Personally, I believe that, and I think also Ian mentioned it at the very beginning, mental health will definitely become a big focus. Gaming is clearly a great channel to build awareness around the condition and also to build hope for people who are suffering from it. I've recently also come several articles recently about motion gaming and how it is used to maintain or improve basic motor skills for the elderly. And just like Ian said, let's not forget about Salesforce training, and gamification can be at the service of better interactions between sales and HCPs as well. Maybe Ian, you want to add on that?
Yeah, and I think I would just echo that technology is really what's driving this, right? Quentin was saying 10 years ago, they were having, your flip phone, your original generation smartphone technology, looking at the way it was quite an accomplishment. But now you look at something like the Oculus Quest 2, and exponentially, your options have improved. They have, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, I know certain psychologists and therapists who use the Oculus and virtual reality for cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy. If someone is afraid of heights, deadly afraid of spiders or clowns or whatever it may be, you can use a safe environment coupled with therapy and kind of confront those things and be exposed to them, because at the end of the day, you're blurring the lines between technology and reality, right? And the more technology you have, the harder it is to discern what it really is. So things like you were saying, mental health and healthcare are huge, but even I'm excited about things like outside of the healthcare space in terms of just gamification and education. I was an original player of the Microsoft Flight Simulator. And if you've seen any of the latest Flight Simulator X, whether it's PC or it's coming out on the next generation consoles, they're one-to-one comparisons. If you're loading that plane is exactly what it looks like if you were to get into a cockpit of like an Airbus A380 or anything like that. And you hear these stories, major FAAs and big companies are excited about this because commercial airline pilots, nobody is really going into that field. They're struggling to find pilots right now. And even, not to, I was reading something the other day that was saying that pilots are actually feeling rusty because they haven't been flying as much. So something like a flight simulator, when the graphics are so good and the comparison is one-to-one and the technology can run it, it's just amazing and incredible. Learning how to fly on a video game is something remarkable. Or there's obviously, we all know what Rock Band was, I think, or one of the first ones where you learned how to play guitar. There's another one called Rocksmith where you're using your real guitar and you're plugging in your guitar and you're learning how to play chords and chord progressions and notes. And it's just incredible where the industry has gone in terms of education. And then you lay a healthcare component on top of that, and everybody's interested.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I mean, in terms of AR, VR, for sure, we've only starting, scratching the surface overall. You mentioned as well Flight Simulator X, and we know that, basically the technology behind is really based on the cloud, and that's how they were able really to generate, these wonderful and really realistic environments. And what cloud gaming is obviously the thing of the future. It will be at some point, it will complement what you have, on consoles and mobile, especially, with 5G or 5G arriving, but also like a lot of personalization at scale. And I think that's also, for healthcare, you can imagine, a sort of like surgeon simulator, a serious one, not the other game, but a serious one, and that will react, based on your own performance in real time and give you this feedback, based on what you're doing. It's not just a simulation with the same rules for everyone, but the game will adapt exactly on how you're performing, and based on your profile, based maybe on your age, based maybe on your experience. All these data will be definitely coming handy to provide really every time a personalized experience. So I think there's also a future in that for healthcare, and I think it's very, very, very exciting.
Sure, 5G is incredible, and that coupled with cloud, you're not storing data natively anymore. You can have a seemingly infinite amount of data transmitted, at lightning speed. Recently, they just had one of the first remote surgeries, where a surgeon was literally using 5G to, I forget where it was, but it may have well have been Tokyo and Los Angeles where the patient was. But in real time, a surgeon, was able to do that. Think about what impact that would have on healthcare, where you can go into, a hospital in the future and you're getting one of the top surgeons in the world for whatever, you're a friend, loved one, or yourself, and you're able to have access to that kind of quality healthcare through technology like 5G, or like I was saying, virtual reality. I mean, I'm really excited for, Apple just released or their rumored release of their 8K VR tech, which is incredible. I think it's great. And also the Apple Glass. So the advent of, let's talk about augmented reality for a second with LiDAR. A lot of people don't know that the technology that's in your latest phone, this fourth lens down there, is not a camera lens. It's for lasers, right? And what impact does that have? Well, if you have something like Apple Glass that has that camera, it's able to see exactly where your hands are. So picture a future, and I guess they are, and I see this as well. People have thought about this before. I know Google tried it a few years ago. It probably wasn't ready yet, but you get somebody like Apple with the capital and the tech know-how behind it. All of a sudden, this phone stays in your pocket and you're able to navigate, you're swiping, you're scrolling, you're doing everything you need to do, text to speech, and all of a sudden, you've blurred that line even further between technology and reality, which is something really exciting. And it's not something that's 10 years away. It's right around the corner.
Exactly. And also, like, I'll just add on to that the fact that, I mentioned accessibility and the fact that we wanted to make this experience, as accessible as possible to everyone, again, without the need of downloading anything. And I think that's, all our creatives are usually HTML5 and JavaScript based. And so there's, like this technology that has been around for many years now has actually shown a lot of improvement. And you can now really replicate almost, AAA console experiences through your browser. And I'm not speaking cloud gaming here. I'm really speaking like using HTML5 and JavaScript. So, all of this put together, the future is really, once again, super exciting. And I can't wait to really like work on more healthcare, and oriented project, because there's really so many things that we can do. All right. And I think we have some time for Q&A.
Yeah, we'll just see if there's any questions coming into the Q&A box. If anybody has any, you can insert your questions into the Q&A box. But I actually have a couple questions for you guys. You working with, this is a game for healthcare. What are some of the difficulties that, you specifically see in games and healthcare as opposed to in other industries, when you're working together? Is there, any challenges with as far as regulation and compliance you have to consider? Sort of just curious.
Yeah.
Sure, I can go ahead and lead that one. So, like I said, I've been in the healthcare industry, and if anyone obviously on this call has, that med legal review is the hardest thing. So when it came to something like this game where you're using a loose metaphor to describe the mechanism of action of a product that isn't approved yet by the FDA, it's not global. You're having to kind of take some creative liberties for sure. But I think, like I said, my hope is that as time goes on, those restrictions kind of get maybe a little looser, and they allow people to kind of see the overall goal and change the perspective of what a game is, right? Like, it's more of an educational platform when used the right way. And as long as your ideas are really crisp and concise, I think you're able to deliver some of those things. But in terms of the challenges, which is I think what you're getting at, that would be the main thing, is to make sure that from a compliance standpoint, your game isn't overpromising. But it's no different than any other medium that we do, whether it's a mobile app or a Salesforce tool or a website or any kind of communication. It's just another vehicle to get your message across. And one of the good things about the game is the lead up time is where you can iron all that stuff out, so that by the time you have a finished product, it's going to be approved. You don't have to worry about that.
And if I may add on to that, for us, I mean, in addition to the compliance issue, for us is that, and that's where really the help of the Harvest team has been enormous, because we're not doctors, we're basically game designers, and so the fact that we're able to I would say interpret a mechanism of action, and they help us have it laid out in layman's terms, and then transcribe it into a gameplay that actually makes sense, and that can be eventually approved by all these regulatory committees. I think on our end, that's the main challenge we're also facing.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. This is really, really fascinating. I guess I'll ask, I've got another question for you. What's the biggest thing that you've learned by working with this client?
I think the biggest thing is a lot of times, and anybody who's on the call again, and whether it's marketing or healthcare or anything like that knows this, you come across people who don't know necessarily what they want until they see it, right? So in any walk of life, right, you're going to get people like that who have that kind of, let's call it a barrier to entry. But the beautiful part about that is once you have something done and you have a proof of concept and the feedback comes in and everybody loves it, and the CEO of the company is on it, and they're playing and they're having a great time, that barrier is destroyed. So from that point in time, they've bought onto the idea. They may have been skeptical at first, but once they see that feedback and once they see that it really is the future, doing it and doing more of them is just par for the course for them now. It's something that's in every year's brand plan, and in every capacity they're asking, how can we do this like that? You always want to be the agency or the company where you're referred to by other clients that, hey, so and so did this incredible thing for us, check it out.
Yeah, and even though this project, was not necessarily like one of the simplest when you look at it on paper, I think the fact that it went so smoothly, and I really mean it, it's a blessing, clearly. I mean, and I think the fact that what Ian said, like the client was on board from the get-go, after and really advocating for this, I think it was also very much of help for us.
Definitely. Do you have plans to do, have similar games or, coming out in the future like this? Or, are you going to be working with Arena again on other initiatives? Or am I allowed to ask that?
I hope so. I think we're gonna pitch this to all of our clients. I mean, that like I said, hopefully after you probably were already on this side before you joined this webinar, right? So after hearing some of these success stories and hearing from us, hopefully this is something that you're bringing front and center. Clients are always looking for the next big thing, right? They want new ideas, they want the latest tech, and luckily for our industry, that stuff is always just right around the corner. There's the next big thing, there's the new thing. So being able to capitalize on that and something like using gaming as a way is it just becomes more commonplace. It's one of the main things that you're going to do. So we'll be pitching gamification and educational gaming. It's one of the coolest ways to communicate something. Like I said, I've been in this industry for a long time, 10 years, and you see a ton of scientific videos with the voiceover and the inside of the body and X, Y, and Z in healthcare. You've all seen a million of them. But when you can take something like that story, and gamify it and make it in a way that's interesting and encourages people to play and learn, that's a win-win.
Absolutely. Is there a place if somebody listening in wanted to go and sort of test out or, test some of the games that you guys have, is there a place they can visit to play them?
Well, on our end, I mean, I think we will hear about this Arena platform, again throughout the year. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, we can just come to either Ian, for the healthcare part, or for Have a Sport, or on my end, you can contact me if you want to. We basically produce like tens of thousands of campaigns, literally, for rich media, mini games, and really like more gamified, bigger gamified experiences. So really, I mean, you just have to reach out to us, and we'll provide some of the demos that are in line with your vertical, that are in line with your objective. There's so much we can do. There's really no limit about what can be gamified. Really, that's our credo. And so yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both for sharing, all your insights in this really exciting work that you guys are doing. I'm, looking forward to, hearing more about what you guys are working on. And, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. I hope you enjoyed the session and continue to attend future webinars and events. And you can check out all of our events and upcoming webinars on our website. And I'd love for you to join us next Wednesday, February 17th at 1:00 p.m. for our next Community Uninterrupted with Wattpad, who'll be discussing what content trends are capturing Gen Z's attention during the pandemic and what it means for brands in 2021. Thank you again, and stay well and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for your attention.